Hello, welcome everybody. This is the 14th of September 2022, where we're talking about the energies and the recommendations for the week of September 15th through the 21st, 2022. And it's entitled The Doors. Let's go surfing, because we have doors that are slamming shut and we have doors that are opening. That's the overall triangulation that I've come up with. Let me explain this slide. And by the way, if you're new here, what we do is we do two of these triangulations. One for the influence. What is it that you're going to feel the biggest energy? And then later on, at the end of the show, we'll talk about the triangulation for how to react, how to behave, what your actions should be centered around to get the maximum effect from that energy. Okay, so in the influence chart, here's what we have. We have the Tropical Astrology. We have 6 retrogrades. And by the way, this is represented by the biggest circle here, the magenta. 6 retrogrades. We have a grand Earth Trine represented by the I-Ching thing, because it has a direct overlap with the grand Earth Trine. So we have a grand Earth Trine right in the middle here. And it lasts all week, and it's the Sun, Saturn, and Uranus North Node. But that Sun part is going to transition over to Venus. And we have, obviously, Uranus over the North Node. We have Sun opposed Neptune and Mercury opposed Jupiter. So the lower mind balanced out with the upper mind, higher mind, expansive mind. But then we have the Dreambot out there in La La Land with time and aliens, as you're going to see. So I make the case that maybe, just maybe, we're looking at ancient aliens. Don't know. Ancient, it matches the retrogrades, because with the time aspect, we have in the Dreambot is mostly ancient. So retrogrades. But then we also have Uranus, which is the future. So we have the whole time span here, the past and the future in astrology. And so that matches the Uranus aspect and all the retrogrades. But so it's focused over here on the Uranus part. As you're going to see, the Uranus is over on the right-hand lower corner of the triangle. And we have a high congruency score because there is an overlap. Now, this Dreambot doesn't cover the whole triad or the whole grand Earth Trine, but it mainly just covers that Uranus North Node. All right, what does it all mean? Let's get into it. We're going to talk about the day-by-day astrology. We'll look at the I-Ching, what it says, and then, first we're going to talk about the Dreambot. All right, here we go. Let's do it. And as always, our wonderful comments from the audience have helped me out. First, Faya R says, talks about the toilets in her area is breaking. So as above, so below. We have toilets breaking. We have toilets being dreamed about. We have humanity going down into a toilet, it seemed. But that might be shifting, right? Eventually the pendulum is going to have to swing, and I think it really is. If you start noticing the pushback is really happening at the collective level, then D says, oh my God, blown away, feeling all this in my current reality. That is a check, but and I appreciate you putting that comment down. And then Selena, shout out, it was a very good comment for me. Really made me think. You don't understand Pisces, to sum it up, as Chicken Little, underestimated. And this rings so much truth to me in multiple ways, because I remember in hindsight, I didn't talk about the superpowers of Pisces, and I'm reflecting on even past CIRF reports, going, I'm leaving so much out. And so thank you, Selena, for keeping me honest, if you will, and also doing a little research on Chicken Little. that is not Pisces. I don't think, because there's this aspect of Chicken Little that I didn't know. I'm using metaphors and analogies that I'm just not specialized in. I don't know fairy tales. I don't know anything about Hollywood. I don't know movie quotes. So you know what? I think I'm just gonna stay out of it. But thank you, Selena, because I'm going to shift things around just a little bit so that we're not missing important things like that. Right? So I don't want to make it seem like Pisces is just negative or pessimistic. And that's not necessarily just a bad thing. Their superpower is imaginative, idealistic, can be extremely spiritual, maybe even mystical, to extreme talents and compassionate, sacrificing. We all need Pisces. So thank you, Selena. Well taken. And Ravi says, thank you for the report. On the plus side, when we all go down the mountain, we will do it together. Where we go one, we go all. She didn't say that, but she says, stay strong, CIRF family. And I second that. Then welcome to Marta over on Rumble. Says, great information. Nice to find you on Rumble. Well, thank you for finding us. And then the winner for this week is not for me to say. He had 7 ups on this. Wild energies wearing me down. Geez, I need a break or a change. Prayers, gratitude, and love for my CIRF family. You know, I think if I had to guess, not for me to say, I have good news. I think this week is finally the wild energies a little bit more tame. There's still some tension in the air, but this grand Earth Trine is going to be magical, I think, at least sensation wise. Feeling grounded, being able to just let go. Now, there are going to be some big transformations and change, because we're talking about Pluto and Uranus here with the Sun and Venus. So big change in ego, big change in relationships and finance. We'll get to that here in a second, but not for me to say congratulations, but I think the energy might be shifting in your favor, in our favor. All right, let's get into the Dreambot. And we have unmistakable, like an era and time. It's ancient. It's an ancient era. That's the red. Not a lot of words, but it's a clear overlap. And then you have the blue is aliens. So in all the words talking about I see the aliens kind of a thing, and their size. Then there's another form of aliens, like the people coming in on the southern border, and they might be running. All the pictures I see, there's either crawling or running or floating. And so that's the other kind of aliens. So anyway, I put those two together, maybe ancient aliens. I don't know. You comment below and see what it means to you. Here's some linguistics I thought were interesting. Interestingly as well, when I see tree at the top of this Dreambot run, I find that interesting because I've been seeing a lot of ancient or indications, evidence of ancient trees that are just gargantuan, like bigger than any of the redwoods or those I don't know, I forget what you call those big trees over there, but I mean, put those down to like little plants and weeds. These trees are as big as like mountains that are cut off. You can see the rings around it. So I don't know if that has anything to do with this, but I've been seeing that a lot lately on social media. Ancient trees, cut off big trees, bigger than anything that we could possibly even imagine. We have living trees that you drive through. That's huge. But these trees that they're showing are evidence of trees that have basically been turned into mountain plateaus. I mean, just magnificently bigger than what we're talking about in the redwoods. All right, so linguistic set number 1, tree ancient, cashier effect. What does that imply? Capitalism? like ancient tree. So your cashier effect or making money on something. Is it a capitalism kind of a thing where we're chopping down all these rainforests to our own demise? But what's the word ancient in there? Tree ancient cashier effect. Linguistic set number 2, ship pull aliens apart. That's kind of reminiscent of Ronald Reagan's warning that the only way to bring humanity together is to have an alien invasion. Ship pull aliens apart. Interesting. All right, let's get back to the astrology. All right, we didn't talk about Mercury retrograde all that much, but we have another 2 weeks or so of starting this week. Let me darken this so you can see where my pointer is. Mercury retrograde means that we have 6 now. All of the outer planets are in retrograde plus Mercury for the next couple of weeks. Your highlights are Mercury opposed Jupiter is right here in this, call it red, and it's having to balance the lower logical reasoning mind, which is in retrograde, and the upper higher spiritual expansive part of our wisdom of Jupiter. That's not necessarily red. Red doesn't indicate bad here, but we have to balance those out, so it might feel like a challenging thing. We also have Venus square Mars. By the way, I didn't mention that we have a T-square. Yep, there's a T-square out here, and this is one of the legs. It's a T-square on Mars. And then towards the end, a lot more proliferation of squares are coming to play, but more so oppositions. All right, let's drill down day by day. Thursday, the 15th, you can see the continuation of our grand Earth trine. You got Sun, Pluto, and Uranus. And in this day, you have the moon down here just passing Uranus and creating these trines up to the sun and Venus. So a lot of ease. The general gist of this, not for me to say, is ease. This is grand ease. Now, that doesn't necessarily imply it's a good feeling. We've got death and rebirth happening with Pluto, plus this big subconscious power thing happening. And then Uranus is the bomb that goes off that you didn't expect, the fireworks of change. And so you got transformation, change, and then ego. And ego thing, like the OCD ego, the ego that pays attention to everything or wants to make sure I'm in control of my surroundings with Virgo, are very good at analytical and the way things should be. That doesn't set well with subconscious deep power and maybe power struggles, but it's easy and it's easy to change. So that could feel very disruptive to the ego, and ego, not even with Virgo, the ego itself wants to have more control. So, no, you're not going to have control over Uranus, and no, you're not going to have control over Pluto. So the only one that changes there is Uranus with his the sun. Then later on in the week, this is going to hop over to Venus. Venus will be our point person for the grand Earth trine. And here's our Venus square Mars. And it's the thing we've been talking about. That alignment goes exact in a couple of days or tomorrow. Venus square Mars, male versus female, yin versus yang. And it is versus. So it's there's this pressure and conflict between the two that has to be resolved. Or it doesn't have to if we're not aware and you're just living life subconsciously, like we mostly do, you're going to be falling into this either or pressure, and that pressure needs resolving. So it could be sound money versus impulsive action. And then we've got Saturn and Uranus in that square. It's tightening even more down to about 1 degree. So very, very tight. And this is our alignment of protest, still ongoing. And then we've got Uranus over the North Node, about 4 degrees out. So there's this freedom is our future, independent, individuality, insight, technology, all that is our future. And then we have powerful, transformative, freedom-oriented future in the material plane. It's a grand Earth trine. So what's easy should be, well, first the signs that it's connecting, the planets that it's connecting, which we already talked about. But also it's easy, the Earth, the general gist of Earth, which is just down to earth, grounded, objective, hardworking, sensory, want to sense things, and but also representative of the material world, the material plane, the 3D reality. All right, Friday the 16th, this Venus and Mars in the square goes exact, so it's at its climax of conflict. And as soon as the moon gets through here, we're looking at another T-square, but our grand Earth trine is intact, so the ease is still there, everything we just talked about. Saturday the 17th, we have our grand, we have our T-square on the moon, so emotional traps. I think I mentioned Mars in a T-square. I don't remember. I might be mixing up last week, so we'll see how that pans out later in the week. But right now, T-square on the emotions, meaning that you'd be feeling trapped in rational emotions, some Gemini emotions, which are very adaptable, maybe flip-flop on mood. And then pretty soon it'll still be in a T-square as the moon goes into Cancer, home, and become more nurturing. So this could be the equivalent of the Pisces self-sacrificing if you're not careful. If you feel that pressure or that trappedness in your emotions, you may want to come to the opposite end. This is an option. Go over to Sag and just explore, travel, do some spiritual work. That would be the opposite side of the T-square on the zodiac is Sag. You can always have that choice of behavior, but you don't have the choice if you're living subconsciously. So be mindful of what you're feeling and come over here if you're feeling trapped in these mood changes that you might feel in the T-square. But there's a lot more pressure here, as indicated, because you've got multiple planets. You got Sun and Venus and Moon and Mars. So a lot more conflict there than just the 2 planets. Sunday, the 18th, the T-square moves into emotions in Cancer. So much more maternal, home-oriented. Again, this is in a trapped, confined space, having to feel nurturing. That's producing this self-sacrificing potential. So watch out for that pressure. You can always just come over here. I mean, you can always act out your emotions, but if you want to create more problems, that's probably what you're going to do. Don't escape. Okay, don't escape this. Just recognize that it's there, and then live by what's right for you, your highest values, or your human design, which is living in accordance with your authority. Your authority tells you whether or not this pressure to nurture is right for you. You don't have to carry out the nurture. You don't have to resolve that conflict, you can just let it be there and then hop over here to, I guess now it would be Capricorn. So you can develop some goals and just go do your thing. That matches the Grand Earth Trine, by the way. And this being easier, I think, is more dominant than our temporary T-square. The Grand Earth Trine, I believe, will be much stronger and hence a lot more grounding, even though it's disruptive. Disruptive with Pluto, disruptive with Uranus. The great unknown in the future is right here, Uranus and North Node. Who the hell knows? Monday the 19th, we are looking at a whole lot of confusing lines right here. As you can see, which one is the most dominant? I think the general gist of today, because we're taking a slight break with our transition from Sun over to Venus, there is no Grand Earth Trine right now in its technical sense. In a loose sense, there's still that energy. But it's in transition over to Venus. So there's a pause there. But I think the biggest energy is the opposition. You've got three planets in opposition to 2 planets, not including Chiron. So just Neptune and Jupiter. But the balancing act that's required here, you're going to be left with internal conflicts. Damned if I do, damned if I don't. Or the high probability of cognitive dissonance, or just too much. So overtasked. And now you have to balance things out in priority order. And typically when these oppositions happen, you are going to be forced to pick one, but both need to be accomplished. So that's that catch-22 situation a lot of the times. So the focus is on staying balanced through all of that. As soon as you pick one side, the other one gets out of balance and that need grows. So now you got to climb over here and accomplish this side, and back and forth we go. So I think this is a teeter-totter on Monday, the 19th, as we transition the Grand Trine over to Venus. And with Venus now on the node of the Grand Earth Trine, it could be about relationships, of course, discretionary relationships. I mean, that was part of we do have a T-square on Mars. I was right and didn't know it. So, but again, now with this, Venus is at the pinnacle of change. So transforming could be finance, could be the economic markets, a big tumble, a big amazing death and rebirth, maybe just the death part, rebirth coming later, possibly. Uranus, big change. So this could be a big upheaval in the markets in a lot of different ways. You've got Venus could be in how you relate to other people, the beauty and art. Art could be transformative or big time change there. Everything in this Venus archetype is now up for grabs in terms of how it's going to change. Not a matter of if, it's how. And the material side of relationships. Okay, because of the earth signs, the material side of the finances are material value and worth. All that's changing, and it's easy change, which may not feel very good. All right, we're inside of 1 degree with Saturn and Uranus. So that protest alignment is getting even stronger. You're going to have that happening, and that is producing an effect on the collective in a good way, too. Keep it coming. Wednesday, the 21st, it's intact still. And I believe we have then the new moon that's going to happen with the Grand Earth Trine. And then right as that happens, then we'll lose the Grand Earth Trine, if I remember correctly. Still a lot of balancing that's happening, but it's still a lot of change and rebirth in relationships, possibly finance, creativity, art. All right. Now we had an I-Ching reading of 40. That's for the influence and the solution because we have no change lines. So in red is going to be our influence. In green is going to be our solution. So a feeling of clarity and fresh opportunity follows a thunderstorm. This is deliverance. What happens when you feel deliverance? It's like that is the grand Earth Trine because there's nothing that you're having to do, right? It is just easy. Nothing, you just sit back and watch for the change. Now, ironically, Earth signs can and do a lot of work. So maybe it's because of the hard work that this fresh opportunity and clarity start. It's the feeling of a thunderstorm that just passed and the clarity and fresh opportunity that follows. That's the time of the energy that we're feeling here. Any time of extreme tension or obstacles, we're almost habituated to tension and obstacles if we look at the astrology. So you have to come out of that assumption that the conflict is still perpetuating and look and perceive that there are fresh opportunities, clarity of situation. There's a release of tension, maybe not all of it. I mean, certainly not all of it. The storm has had the effect of clearing the air and suddenly reducing atmospheric tension. Whew. And that is totally in alignment with the grand Earth Trine. This symbolizes some kind of deliverance is at hand. And you are noticing this around the world, are you not? Like people coming back on their word. New Zealand releasing all their oppressive crap, right? And let's just be kind. They might be wearing these face muzzles for a reason. Just be kind. It's their individual choice. Well, yeah, it is, but that's what we've been saying this whole time. Great clarity of purpose and renewed vigor can follow the healing of old wounds. Similar. Now we get into the solution. So what do you do with this energy? It is important to return to normalcy before moving ahead with new plans or projects after periods of stress. Why would we have periods of stress? Well, Pluto and Uranus changing everything up. So it's important to just relax as change is happening. Relax there, acceptance. And then, according to this I-Ching, it's before you react, try to return as much as you can to normalcy first, set the foundation, now do your thing. Your first priority is return to normal conditions as quickly as possible. Breathe a sigh of relief. Don't relax completely. Look ahead. Attend to residual matters that need taken care of and do so without hesitation. That's the Mars in Gemini. Make a clean sweep of the past and move deliberately. Forgive, forget, and move on. See your fortunes improve. See your fortunes improve. And by the way, one other thing that I'll let you know, well, we're going to see this real soon here, but attend to residual matters that need taken care of and do so without hesitation. You have the advantage of the Sidereal Aries to do this. Do so without hesitation. And here is the conversion chart. This is Uranus because of all that big overlap on the influence is all about mostly about Uranus over the North Node. That's the main overlap. Uranus at 18 degrees Taurus, 41 minutes, puts us in hexagram 2, which is the receptive in the rave, and then we get Sidereal Aries. And line 6 of gate 2 is fixation, unable or unwilling to see the whole picture, with Mercury exalted less negative, though the intellect becomes absorbed in constant rationalization. Higher knowing that is extremely narrow in its receptivity. So fixation means you just are fixated on the wrong thing, like in motorcycle riding or any type of two wheels, like a bicycle. We tend to get fixated on the thing that you don't want to ride over or hit. And that fixation, the bike tends to go right towards it. In flying airplanes, it's the scan that's very important. Fixation is your worst enemy because you start getting fixated on maybe a dial, and then you lose your scan. So all of a sudden you impact something because you were only paying attention to that one thing. So we need to be doing that in your day-to-day, is to be looking at, first of all, the big picture. Open your awareness up. And by the way, the grand Earth Trine is great for this, because you can sit back and get grounded and to be able to open up your awareness as you relax. And that's the receptive. But also seeing the big picture. It's going to be less thinking and more being. This is the downside to our line, the need for security may distort awareness to its ultimate perversion, destructiveness. The higher self absorbed with the mundane and the need for security. So we need to prevent yourself from getting so absorbed into something, maybe bullheaded. It's a sort of an earth sign thing, to where you can't see the big picture. All right. So we don't want to be narrow in our receptivity. You want to look for blind spots. Don't make assumptions. Use your awareness. See things as they are, etc. All right. How about, well, we're already here. The solution slide. So old doors are slamming. This is the death portion of the Pluto, death and rebirth, transformation. So old things that are no longer serving us, those doors are closing, but new ones are popping up. And that's obviously what's right for us in Uranus over the North Node. So the future is knocking, no pun intended. So the overall influence this week is a feeling of clarity comes from a beautiful and empowering grand Earth Trine. Our senses come alive as Uranus North Node continue to bring massive change headed into the future with the power of Pluto to boot. That's based off the I-Ching 40. All right, our solution triangulation is as follows. You've got the blue circle with I-Ching 40. That's Deliverance. Return to the familiar, stabilize a new situation, look ahead. Quote, make a clean sweep of the past and move deliberately. Whew. That does match the Dreambot, which is talking about ancient. Make a clean sweep of the past and move deliberately. That implies the future. So it's got that timeline in there. Rave says, watch out for fixation, unable or unwilling to see the whole picture. And then Sidereal Aries, obviously, is our warrior, be able to be direct and transparent and passionate. This week's triangulation points to the ability to boldly move forward, Sidereal Aries, into the future. The I-Ching indicates we need to let go of the past and move on. Things are quickly changing with Uranus over the North Node, and so we need to continue to stabilize at each new level and in each new environment, because change is constantly changing the environment. Look ahead, not backwards. Ironically, return to the familiar as needed. Additionally, the rave warns of significant blind spots in your awareness due to fixation. Be sure to scan the perimeters of your awareness instead of fixating on what you think you know or what you are expecting to have happen. Try to see the big picture. Then with your actions, use the power and confidence of Aries to boldly power your way into the future. Don't be afraid to fight for yourself as long as it doesn't trap you into the past. Remember, you can't fix problems with the same strategies that we used before, or the same strategies that were used to create the problem. So the affirmation that I'm going to use this week is the right doors are opening for my true purpose. Uranus and Pluto are opening doors for ego, identity, sense of self, and also sense of how I relate to others, the Venus aspect, how I see beauty, and the finance part. It's all changing and transforming, and all you got to do is watch. That's really the nuts and bolts of this week. But don't get fixated. Don't get too relaxed. That's a warning from the I-Ching. There is amount of doing, which the grand Earth Trine has no problem doing. But don't get so fixated and so bullheaded. Be able to stay with your awareness, open, seeing the big picture. Don't expect, but fight for yourself. There's a lot here, and there's again a lot of things on both sides of the continuum, as I mentioned with the oppositions in the astrology. Going to have to balance this week. Going to have to choose sides, cognitive dissonance, but then have to quickly go back and shore up the other side of the continuum. Stay in balance. All right, that's all I can think of. I'm hoping that this is helping you. And if not, so say in the comments below. Tell me how I can improve. And I really do appreciate all of you helping me in that regard. I really am committed to making this a good product for all of us. All right, with that, blessings to all. Hope your doors are opening in just the perfect way for your soul's path. All right. Take care, everybody. See you next week.